Hello and welcome in, whatever you're watching this on. My name is Derek Peterson. This is Greg Smith sitting next to me. We are here at, it's maybe not the first one that you've done. Well, I guess I don't know. It's the first full practice that I've gotten to see for Nebraska in my time here. The first full practice we've gotten to see of the Scott Frost era. It was about 2.5 hours. There were fans in the stands. It was cool. There was sort of a nice energy. Beforehand, there were people down in the Haymarket as we were coming in here, so it's starting to feel a little more normal. Greg, key takeaways. What was the thing that you came into today wanting to see? Did you see it? What are kind of some overarching reactions after these 2.5 hours?
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to see the team run around and see the energy out there. I guess we've not been able to see something like this under Scott Frost, where we get to see the entirety of practice and just get to see what it all looks like. So there was a level of intrigue where you get to see all of the guys that we've been kind of talking about and hearing about from different coaches, and you talk to players and you hear them talk about this guy is making a move and this guy is not. Like you like to be able to put eyes on that and actually see it. So that to me was just the biggest thing that I wanted to see. I mean, I guess for you, what was kind of the thing that you came into the day just kind of wanted to be able to take away?
Well, the last practice that we got to watch, we got to see like the first 30 minutes of practice for last week or the week before.
Right.
Omar Manning was not on the field, and I mean, when we are just given sort of little peek-ins, those moments tend to get overblown. I would say. And you kind of look at it and say like, oh, after what happened with Omar Manning a year ago, it's here we go again. But then there's also the contrarian of, well, this could be the one practice he misses all spring.
Sure.
And he was out there today, and he looked really good. He looked like what we were told that he was going to look like.
Yeah, if you were to, somebody, if we say, okay, what do you think he's going to look like out there? It's what we saw today, making a variety of catches from different quarterbacks, jumping, diving. He completely looks the part. Like, saying that even feels like I'm underselling it on just what he looks like out there physically. You just hope that he's continuing to be out there on a daily basis, as Scott Frost, I guess, has said to us repeatedly. He definitely looked like a guy that should be able to contribute in the fall if he stays on track for what he did today.
Yeah, so for me, it was just I wanted to just see the interplay between the wide receiver group and the secondary, because I've written this a ton. We've talked about this a ton, either on podcasts or just talking. I'm really intrigued by the secondary, and like the phrase "iron sharpens iron." You've got this wide receiver group that Scott Frost said at the outset of spring that he feels like is the most talented and the deepest group that he's had since he's been here. So to have that group that still needs some experience. It's a little green, going up against a defensive back room that has talent, experience, and potential. Potentially there could be a recipe for success for Nebraska. And so for today, just to take this whole thing in totality, they've got some dudes in the wide receiver room, not just outside of Omar Manning, that I'm kind of interested in. One of them is Baron Miles.
Yeah, he definitely looked like a guy out there. And I mentioned this to you just as we were kind of watching things, is that, sometimes you see newer guys into the programs, in particular walk-ons that come in that you've heard about, that they stand out, but not in a good way, where they don't look the part. And he looked like he belonged in there. That's always something I kind of look for when you see a guy for the first time. Does he look like someone that just belongs out there? And then we kind of got to see him make some plays, run around out there. It looked like a guy. We've heard some good things about him during spring practice. I guess he lived up to that today. I definitely think he's a guy to put in your mind and kind of stash away to buy futures in.
Yeah, totally.
We're treating it like the stock market.
Yeah, just kind of keep in the back of your mind, because we saw Oliver Martin make a couple good plays. We saw like Levi Falk make a couple good plays. We saw Xavier Betts make a couple plays. Omar Manning just looked like he had stickum on his hands at some points with some of the catches that he was making. We can talk about the quarterbacks if you want. It's it's not perfect conditions. It was an up and down day, I thought, for the quarterbacks. The secondary though, what did you think? Javin Wright had
Play of the day.
yeah, the play of the day, a ridiculous one-handed pick. We got to see Quentin Newsome. Looks like he's maybe for now at least got the opposite corner spot of Cam Taylor-Britt. He was with the first team. They've got Isaac Gifford that they're kind of using in that nickel with JoJo Doman out. So as you were looking at the defense, what did you kind of think of what we saw from the secondary?
I thought, to me, that was the most intriguing group. And I think it paired so nicely with your most intriguing group of wide receivers because, like you said, they do get to sharpen each other and make each other better. Because my thing, it's funny that I go right to the second group, but we looked up at one point, the second group in the secondary was the Dab Joseph, Braxton Clark, Miles Farmer, Noah Polo Gates as the four, with Isaac Gifford as that kind of nickel rover role, kind of roaming around.
And you made the comment, you were like, that's the future at secondary. And I started thinking in my head, I was like, yeah, and they're probably going to play a ton of snaps.
Yeah, they're going to get snaps. They're going to have to because, A, they're good enough to see the field in some form or fashion now, but also you want to start to build that experience so that once that group that's ahead of them now leaves, they've got experience and game reps that they can just slide right in seamlessly. Like, I'm excited for Nebraska with that group on the back end. I think that there's a lot of talent there that's just kind of waiting to be shown and to come out.
Yeah, and so, I mean, like, it's one practice. We got to see one practice, so it's not a whole thing, and it's still got a couple weeks before we get to the spring game, a couple weeks of spring ball left. So, things are always going to change. But, I just think they've got it, and this was kind of something that Brandon Vogel and I talked about on my podcast this week, where it looked like it was building to this, and then today, I was curious if I was gonna leave today feeling like this idea was reinforced, or maybe this idea was sort of maybe a little overblown. They've got depth. They look like they've got depth at wide receiver and in the secondary.
On the defensive line.
Yeah, on the defensive line.
And the inside linebackers.
Yeah, they just look. There's a lot of guys we could talk about. And tight end. Yeah. And like it's going to be hard to sort of peg where guys are at. From a depth chart standpoint with this one, I've got guys in my notes. Ramir Johnson didn't practice. Savion Morrison didn't practice. Chris Hickman wasn't practicing. Gabe Irvin wasn't practicing. Yeah, Marquise Stepp is out. Connor Culp wasn't out there. Alante Brown has something with his arm. And then number 7 on defense, Taman Lynham was not out there. And then obviously, you've got Will Honus, who's limited. We didn't see JoJo Doman. Ben Stilley's not out there. So there's just a lot of guys that are moving around. But we get to see them. And, I mean, I was encouraged.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes you get nervous about these situations. You're like, okay, are we, and I guess fans, the nearly 4,000 fans that were out here, are you going to come out here and say, oh, I feel bad about the team's prospects this year? Not necessarily. I don't think that you should be, coming away from this thinking they're winning the national championship, but you definitely come away from it thinking
they're winning the Big Ten.
They've got some. Your words, not mine. They've got some guys that you're at least excited to see that they can put everything together. They can be okay this season.
One other note that I had that I think was interesting, it's probably too early to start talking about units on the offensive line, but 2 guard pairings that we saw that were consistent throughout all of practice was Brock Bando and Brant Banks working together as the left and the right guard, and then Matt Sichterman and Ethan Piper working together as guards. And at the start of practice, it was Banks and Bando. My notebook is going crazy. It was Banks and Bando taking quote-unquote first-team reps. And then later in practice, when we got to some teamwork, it was Sichterman and Piper taking first team. So were you surprised to see Ethan Piper, who started all of last year, not looking like he has the spot locked down?
Yes, I was surprised by that. I thought that I thought that we were in a spring where 4 of the 5 offensive line spots were locked up.
Right, and today it looked like it was 3 of the 5.
Yeah, those 3 were definitely locked up. I don't know. We never saw a pairing other than I almost said beef jerky, Cam Jurgens. In case you missed the
It's beef
branding
jerky
video,
first reference.
got
Beef
that in
jerky.
my mind. Beef jerky. So Cam Jurgens, Bryce Benhart, and Turner Corcoran were always the 3 in those spots when that unit was out there. But I was surprised at the guard rotation without Ethan Piper. But there is a lot of competition at that guard spot. That came up with Greg Austin earlier in the spring. There are a lot of different guys that could work into that spot. So Piper's got his work cut out for him to lock that spot down.
What else interested you today that you saw?
Quarterback. I think that if Baron Miles and a couple other guys are guys that I would be buying stock in for the future, one practice, I'm buying Harburg stock. I thought that the ball, and it's funny because Scott Frost said this, the ball jumps out of his hand. I really think the ball jumps out of his hand. He throws the ball really well, but he throws with good anticipation as well. I thought he had a really nice day. So that really stood out to me because I feel like we pretty much know what we're getting from Adrian. You just hope that the turnovers are cut. But what happens at the number 2 spot at quarterback is really intriguing, and it gets more interesting after what I saw today, I think.
Logan has a lot of athleticism. We saw that a couple times
Yeah.
when he was able to break out of the pocket. He's got athleticism. He's probably got an advantage over Heinrich in the running game.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And all of the quarterbacks had balls that hung up in the air.
Yes, it was a tough throw.
It was a tough throwing day. But I think Heinrich is closing the gap. I think is maybe the most modest way to say it, between where people thought he was going to be coming in and that number 2 spot with Logan Smothers. I think he's slowly but surely closing the gap there.
Yeah, you can see when I think Frost or Verduzco, one of the two, said this past week that he was simply ahead of where they thought he was going to be. You could see that. Like, he looks a little bit more polished than maybe you would have expected with first getting eyes on him in a college practice. And
there are a couple throws that he made where it's out of his hand already, and then you see the window develop, and you're like, oh, wow, he's got really good anticipation. It was interesting to see them, and like I said, we haven't seen a full practice before, so I don't know if they've done this before, but they have quarterbacks going through running back drills.
Yeah, had them running through the chute and then getting hit with the pad at the end to make sure they don't fumble. They were holding the ball high and tight like running backs. I did think that I would love to know if that's something that is new or have they always done that, because that was something that we both kind of perked up at right away when we saw that one, which was nice to see given how much the quarterback runs in this offense.
I don't know about you. You're a little bit more bundled up than I am, but I'm cold. We've been sitting out here for 2.5 hours. My hands are a little cold, so we're going to go get some I'm gonna go get some coffee. We're gonna go get in some a little bit more of a warmer environment, and we're gonna get some stuff up on hailvarsity.com. So we'll have more stuff on this practice. There's gonna be a bunch of stuff to write about. So thanks for watching.